Spotsylvania, and then Gary and I were just having a conversation about the site here. But we pay 75% of the cost. The cost of the audit's about $3,500. And we negotiated a package deal with F&R and Bowman to provide that service. And this is what a report looks like. It's pretty exhaustive. Let me jump over to the far right. I don't think NRV, which is supposed to be the box below UMW, that's New Richmond Ventures. It's an angel investor fund out of Richmond. They wanted to expand in our region, and we have been helping them connect both with the local governments, our colleagues in the localities, but also with the entrepreneurial community. They're basically a stage 2 funder. It's headed up by Jim Ukrop, and it's a very unique approach. They don't manage a fund, Mr. Thomas. What they do, when they've decided a project or a company is worth investing in, then they circulate that as an investment opportunity to angel investors, and they go in as a group. But it's only at the point that the principals of NRV are willing to put their own money in. But you don't invest in them in a typical venture fund. Center for Economic Research, we have partnered, and I think we had a brief conversation about this back in the winter. We have partnered with the Fredericksburg Regional Chamber to help set up a center at Mary Washington. We compete with other regions who have centers at places like George Mason, VCU, ODU. And if we're going to go out and market the region, we have to show an ability to produce information that's specific to our region, and we need to show that we have the capacity to do it here. And we have a 4-year university. They have a very good economics department. The first deliverable for them, we have a 3-year program with them, but the first deliverable is a commuter skills study. It is not, we know where people are going from, we know where they're going to, we know how long it takes them. What we don't know is what did they study, what are their skills, and where do they work. Those are the things we don't really know. The center is taking census tract data, and they're slicing and dicing census tract data to come up to give us a good profile of the skill set of our workforce. This has already paid off, and I wanted to share this story because it was worth the investment we've already made in it. We're in a very strong competition for a unique company that would be new to our region and also new to the state that tends to move in clusters. It likes to be around other like industries because they exchange and move staff and attract people. We are very competitive on everything, but they came back and asked a workforce question. Where are we going to get our employees? Because they have about 150 incredibly high-skilled jobs. And while I can say we have 60,000 people that leave the region, and 40% of them have a bachelor's degree or higher, I don't know, I can't give them a number of how many have the skill set for their industry. And it's very specific. Within the census data, they've got what's called fields of study. It's what you've identified that you actually have studied either in a 2-year or a 4-year institution, and whether you're still working in that field. So I asked the researcher on a Friday at Mary Washington if he could tell me how many people, if I went through and highlighted the 6 or 7 fields that apply to this industry, could he tell me how many people in that 60,000 out commute have those fields of study in their background? And he did. And on Sunday morning he gave me the number, and it was nearly 2,000 people had the skill set that matched what that prospect was looking for. So at least we've taken the workforce issue off the table for them. In the Center, Transformation 2020, as you know, was a regional initiative led by the University of Mary Washington to identify issues across the region, broadband being one of them, transportation, a lot of them you all have been talking about here this evening. Those have been handed off to be led either by the Regional Commission, by the Chamber of Commerce, and other groups around the region. We've been asked by the university to pick up responsibility for continuing that going forward. Why that is important to us, and I think Mr. Akers mentioned VACO. There was probably a presentation at the most recent VACO meeting from a business group called Go Virginia, who want to create match funding opportunities for regions, and regions can be defined as 2 jurisdictions, not an entire region, who want to cooperate on an economic development initiative that has come up as an idea from their business community. Transformation 2020 has about a 30-member business-led advisory group, and so we want to reinvigorate that because there may be an opportunity for us to do some things across the region if the Go Virginia initiative that they're working with the General Assembly and the governor on goes forward. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Mr. Board members have questions. I'll start with Mr. Seeley this time on this interview.
Mr. Chairman, I asked my question sort of along the way.
Okay, that's fine. Mr. Akers?
No, sir, I have no questions of Mr. Roberts.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Akers.
Okay. Ms. Underwood?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Black?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Thomas?
Just one, Mr. Roberts, I'm sure Caroline is always notified when one of those prospects that hit the website is looking in Caroline, right?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay.
Actually, of the 40-odd projects that we've worked over the last 15 months, Caroline has had an opportunity to respond to between 35 and 38 of those. Okay, and actually you had one very specific, but when they were regional projects, Caroline had an opportunity to respond. There was about 38 of those that we worked. What I appreciate most about Gary is if he doesn't have it, he just tells me he doesn't have it.
Okay. Well,
Because the worst thing you can do is try to sell an economic development prospect something they didn't ask you for. So I really do appreciate the fact it makes our job easier and makes everybody's reputation better.
okay, if it's not proprietary, how does that transition work? I as a business owner look at your website and I say, oh, I need 100 acres and I've got this kind of industry. How does it go from you, which is a cooperative regional effort, to Caroline-specific search? Is that you control the 3 or 4 sites that you're looking for in
No,
the
sir.
area, or each locality controls their own site and their own application?
Yes. In effect, what we would do is try to dig a little bit deeper about what kind of information you're looking for. You know, what do you want with the site? How big does it have to be? Do you need a building? What kind of utility needs do you have? We try to build that into, and it comes from the state this way, an RFI, which is like an RFP. And then we circulate that. And each jurisdiction comes back to us with a response
Okay.
and a proposal to go back. We do review those. I will tell you, we do review those, and if we don't think one of those responses fits, we'll come back and say that doesn't fit. Because if we send that forward, and that happens to be the first thing they look at, and it's not responsive, they're going to throw the whole package away. The EDP won't even forward it if you send them something that's non-responsive. So your whole package gets kicked, which is why I appreciate it when Gary just says, you know, have it. And I've never had to come back to Gary on a site.
Okay. Okay. I think that answers my
I
question.
hope that, it may be more than what you were asking, but that it does get circulated. We'll then forward it back to the prospect as a package. We'll put regional information on top of it. Then they'll come back and tell us which ones they want more information on.
Okay.
And at that point, you know, at some point, they have to get in front of the jurisdiction because you've got to be able to look them in the eye. So
Right.
there's only, but so far we can take it, and then they've got to come on the ground and sit here and talk to Gary, dig more into what they're looking for, and his colleagues in the other localities.
So really, until they get to a certain level of interest, you're basically the point of contact for the prospect.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean people don't come directly to you, because they do. You've got
Right, right.
prospects that don't come through us. I'm just measuring the ones we touch.
Right. Right. Okay. Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. We appreciate your presentation. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Y'all have a great Thanksgiving.
And you
Thank you.
also, sir.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to fiscal 2015-16 first quarter budget report. Ms. Hatcher?
Good evening, Chairman Taylor, members of the board, county staff. I'll make this short. It's first quarter budget report, and it's short, best I can say. This is on an accrual basis, but I have included for all the revenues a cash so that you can get an idea of how the cash comes in, but we do have 60-day accrual at the end of the year, so 60 days of the 90 days is in the other year, so I'm saying this is short. You can see by the attached summaries, 10.4% of the budgeted revenues for the major funds have been collected or billed. 28.8% of the budget expenditures have been expended for the major funds. The general fund revenues for the quarter are $1,903,453, or 4% of budget estimates. On the cash basis, your property tax collections are slightly lower than the same quarter of fiscal year 15. Your sales tax revenue is higher than the same period last year and appears to be increasing slightly, which is a good sign. Your local communication taxes, again, like we've been going through the last 5 years, continue to be lower. Your business license collections are slightly lower in comparison to last fiscal year, but your building permits and recordation taxes are up slightly, so that's kind of a mixed message. Fines and forfeitures are also less than last year at only 9% of the budget. Your overall expenditures in the general fund are slightly above the 25% threshold, but most of your departments are below the 25% threshold. This is the first year for the first quarter report I've actually recorded the transfers to debt service in the first quarter. I normally only do it twice a year, and I did it for the quarter, so it changed that a little bit. All your departments are being conservative in their spending. Your school revenues are 24.3% of budget, and expenditures are 26.7% of budget. Social service revenues are 19.1% of budget, which is higher than last year, and expenditures are below the 25% threshold. Both revenues and expenditures are slightly below overall of what they were last year. CSA revenues and expenditures are well below the 25%, but I've already been notified by Ann Tyree that the expenditures will be higher, so they're coming. Your debt retirement reflects revenues of 44.5%, mostly due to the general fund transfer for debt service payments. Your meals tax revenues are higher than the same quarter of last year, which is good. Your expenditures are 46.5% of budget due to the time of the debt service payments. Your operating revenues for the utility fund are 28.3% of budget, representing 3 months of billings. Your operating expenses for the utility fund are 23.9% of budget, below the 25% threshold. Debt service for the utility fund is 68.1% of budget based on the timing of the debt service payments. It should be noted that the operating revenues still continue to be greater than the operating expenses, and for the 3-month operating revenues were $133,000 higher than operating expenses. But this is a little bit lower than what it has been in past years because the debt service has gone up a little bit. So it's counteracting until we get to the hump that Courtney Rogers has explained for doing on the debt service. Your availability fees are 30.2% of budget. You've collected 14.5 water and 14.5 sewer availability fees through September 30th. Your Dawn wastewater fund, the billed operating revenues are 24.5% of budget, and operating expenses are 22.1% of budget. The debt service for Dawn is at 50% of budget. Tourism reflects 18.2% of revenue connected and 27.5% of expenditures. Your transient occupancy taxes are still showing that they are increasing slightly, not by major leaps and bounds, but they are finally starting to move up a little bit. All departments continue to monitor expenditures, and we monitor the revenues, and that's the best I can do for you for the first quarter. Any questions? I don't know.
Board members have questions?
Just one. We haven't had our audit yet to verify last year's.
We have not completed it, no, sir.
Okay. We will complete that when?
The county portion of it is basically done, is being held up right now by the schools.
Okay. So we'll complete that by when?
I do not have an answer for you, sir.
I'm fairly curious because I know there was some discussion about the year-end funds for the schools, and I was wondering when we would know what happened. So we should know by the end of this calendar year?
I certainly hope so.
Okay, so maybe at our meeting in December, we might have an idea.
No.
Okay, as soon as you know, please send me an email
As to how the schools stand,
as to their year-end balance that we were talking about, additional funding for teachers.
yes, sir.
Thank you.
If I might add, I suspect there will be a 2-on-2 meeting with the superintendent and the chairman of the school board. That might be an issue you might discuss at that time, whenever the board decides to have that meeting.
I'm not necessarily sure that I'll have an opportunity to participate in that 2-on-2, but if I do, I would bring it up. If not, whoever's there, I wish they would bring it up.
Right, but I would, and that's my point, whoever the board selects, or whoever decides to be a part of that, could address that at that time. Okay, any other questions?
Yes.
Mr. Black?
As you were going through this, you were reading through this memo, and I was kind of following along. One of the things that you mentioned that wasn't in here was fines and forfeitures. I didn't see that, and you said we were at 9%. We were at 9%. Just so that's not in this. That's not in this memo.
For the fines and forfeitures?
Yeah.
No, it's, if you actually can see it on the actual page itself.
Okay. That's all. I was just wondering. You can just point
I
me.
kind of pick and choose different things to say up here.
Okay.
I don't
That's
like
all.
talking about these beans, as you all well know.
Okay.
You want to count them?
I just like counting them, I don't like talking about them.
I'll talk about it after.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, other board members? Mr. Underwood or Mr. Akers, Mr. Seeley? Okay, thank you, Mrs. Hatcher. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That takes us to appointments for the Board of Equalization. I don't know if any board members have appointments for tonight. Mr. Thomas?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I have one based on the requirements. They asked for a person who is involved in real estate, and I actually have a willing volunteer who's Mary Pitts of Pitts and Mans. She said she would love to serve on that.
Okay, is that a motion?
If I need to make a motion, so.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that Mrs. Mary Pitts would serve on the Board of Equalization representing the Mattapan District. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried.
Mr. Chairman, if I could clarify, what you're actually doing is making a recommendation because the
To the
Board of
judge.
Equalization is actually appointed by the Circuit Court.
Right.
Mr. Pardon, could we get a list of who were the members for the last Board of Equalization?
Certainly.
Okay, other board members have appointments they would like to make now?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to put Mr. Ernest Rollins on,
Okay.
as a possible.
Okay. Is that in the form of a motion?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Second.
All right, so moved and properly second that Mr. Ernest Rollins' name would be actually given to the judge and asked to serve on the Board of Equalization representing the Reedy Church District. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Okay, if other board
Mr.
members can, I'm sorry.
I would like to make a recommendation to the judge on the name of David Rababi
Okay,
for the Madison District. Mr. Chairman, before we go any further, let's go over the ground rules for this. There's only to be 5 members and 2 alternates, and I think there needs to be a decision made on how those 5 are going to be chosen. And I think that every board member needs to understand what that choice or who those choices are and how that choice is made.
okay, well, in the past, every board member has,
We didn't have a 6th board member before.
okay.
Now we have a 6th
Now we have
board
a
member,
6th. Okay.
and 5 was the maximum.
Okay, so what you're saying is there will be 5 and then 1 would be an alternate?
2 alternates.
Or 2 would be an alternate?
Need 2 alternates.
And keep in mind, 30% of your board has to be in the real estate
Right.
development, real estate construction field. In the past, for our 5-member board, we had 2 people that were they were either a realtor or they were a developer. And that is a requirement under the rule also.
Mine
Okay.
is real
Yours is
estate.
a real.
Okay,
Right.
But I think before we go forward, we need to make sure that everybody understands what we're doing and how those choices are being made and how we're going to make
Because
them.
we got to decide what one district's going to be left out.
okay, one district well, 2 districts would have,
No, just one, 5,
Okay.
5 members.
so 5 members and 1 district would be an alternate. Okay, I still don't see why each person can't make an appointment, and then the board can determine who that alternate person would be. I don't see where that would stop a person from nominating someone for that district. And then the board, at the time that the Board of Equalization is actually set up, can determine who the 5
When will the
persons
Board
would
of
be.
Equalization actually be set up?
It has to be set up after the Board of Assessors has completed their work.
When are they completing their work?
I don't have the date on
Mr.
that.
Parton?
But, Mr. Black, they will, Blue Ridge will be here at the next meeting to give an update, but my understanding is they will need through the end of the year to complete the field work. So you're looking at hearings for the Board of Equalization in January. Sharon Carter, I know, would like that they be appointed as soon as possible. There has to be training that has to be done, and we need to get going as soon as we can on scheduling the hearings.
I guess what my point is, every board member has the right to appoint someone to the Board of Equalization. If only 5 can serve, the board can determine at that time who those 5 would be and who the alternate would be. But that does not preclude a board
I
member
think we
from-
need to determine then, if we're going to do it that way, we need to determine how that's going to be determined. I mean, how are we going to determine which one's going to be left out? How are we going to decide which of the districts gets left out of this?
Again, I don't see why that's important. At this point, you know, you're going to have 6 people, and you got to decide which 5 are going to serve. But I don't see why it's important that.
Well, I think Mr. Chairman, might disagree. I think we need to know the process before we move forward. I'd like to know the process. I don't have a problem with what you're saying per se, but what is the process that we're going to use to determine which one's left out? I think that's something that is.
Well,
something that-
I think one of the things you would do is look at who the people are and look at the experience that they have and determine which 5 would be the best based on what it is that they're asked to do. We want people, from what I can understand, with real estate background, at least 30%. So if you have people on there who may not have that background, then obviously that person might be an alternate. I mean, it's up to the board as to how they want to do it, but I don't see why it makes a difference.
Well, I guess, yeah, but I guess my whole thing is I wouldn't think that any one of the 6 of us would pick someone that's unqualified. So then you're going to say you're going to take someone who's qualified and they're going to be the alternate. I guess, there'd be 2 alternates, that would be 7. That would be 7. So how do you, I mean, rather than going through and, just trust Ross.
This is easy. Whoever has, there's 5, and then whoever doesn't have one represented gets to have the 2 alternates. So if somebody doesn't show up, you always have one of your people there.
Again, I fail to see what the issue is. You got to appoint somebody, just appoint them, and then the board will determine who will serve.
I
don't agree.
And that's fine. Mr. Akers, if you want to make your appointment.
Yeah, I've already made my motion to appoint David Ruvabi, but I would also, I like what Mr. Thomas has said, is the fact that whoever the 6th person is, or the 6th district is that's going to be an alternate, then they have a chance to appoint both of the alternates so that they would have someone there.
That still doesn't-
I tell you what my concern is the fact that this is not an issue where it hasn't been addressed before when people leave the board. I believe that, whether we want to admit it and think it or not, but the Madison District, Lake Blandor are two major real estate revenue-producing districts. And I would certainly think that those two districts should be, Mattapan is another one, Carmel Church. And I would think those districts need to be represented on the Board of Equalization at all times and not be served as with an alternate member, just in case somebody else doesn't show up, they get to serve. I just don't think that's being fair to those districts because they're major revenue producers, whether you like it or not, and whether you agree or not, it is a fact. It is a fact.
Okay.
Could
Mr. Black?
Could we do one of two ways? Either someone's going to get left out. So either, with 5 of the 6, you either pick the straws A, or B, my thinking is you have 3, and you pick 3, and like Mr. Akers and I would have to agree on one, and then one per 2 districts. So Mr. Thomas and Mr. Underwood, Mr. Seeley and Mr. Taylor pick on one, so we have 3, and then you pick an alternate. You pick the alternates from there.
Pick the alternate from the...
Well, you have 3, so it would be 1 per 2 districts, because you can have a minimum of 3.
Saying just have 3?
Just have 3, and then you pick alternates
I'm
with
still
2
going to go
alternates.
for the real estate person that I'm going to appoint, because I'm going to cover the whole county with that one person. See what I'm saying? I got a person that sells real estate throughout the whole county.
Who would appoint the other 2?
Well,
Mr. Chairman,
everyone have to agree. Agree with
Okay, this,
the 2 people.
Alan,
Mr. Chairman, if you appoint a 3-member board, then you're only able to appoint 1 alternate, not 2.
I guess the concern that I have is, I don't think, the Board of Equalization basically is what citizens go to, or who citizens go to, if they have a concern about their property value, about their assessment. If you get your assessment and you don't like it or you feel it's unfair, you go to the Board of Assessors. And if that doesn't work for you or you're not satisfied, you then go to the Board of Equalization. And I'm just saying that every district, even though you may have one person that's going to serve as an alternate, I think that every district ought to have someone from their district on that board, even though one of them may be an alternate. Because certainly I would want the people in the Port Royal district to feel that they aren't important, or that they aren't, or don't have someone that they can go to in the event that they have a question or a concern about the assessment. So, and again, however we do it, I just think that each district should have a person, and then once you decide who those persons are, then you decide how you're going to choose the 5 people and who the alternate person will be.
But I still believe, and you're absolutely correct, Mr. Chairman, what you say when you say that the Board of Equalization, and to be honest with you, the Board of Equalization cannot do what the Board of Assessors do. They cannot change your assessment. What they can do is equalize, and they look at other people around you and say, okay, yeah, they really made a mistake on yours. But when you're talking about the districts that have a large population and have a lot of homes and what have you, the chances of having problems, and especially with the Equalization Board, is more in tune than it is in a rural area, one that there are not many houses in it.
But everybody has the same population in all the districts. There's no one
Not
district
the same
with more
houses,
population.
absolutely not, Mr.
Same
Taylor.
population.
Not as far as the number of homes and businesses in a district. Absolutely not. That's not true at all. Are you trying to tell me that, no disrespect to Port Royal, and I'm just only using them as an example, that Port Royal has as many businesses and houses as the Madison District does?
You said population, and I'm saying they're all the same.
You didn't listen to what I said. I said as far as businesses and houses are concerned. Population, I still say Madison District has more population than any other district does today. Now, when we did the redistricting 4 years ago, you're absolutely correct. It was supposed to be equal. It is not equal today. Get the population figures and see where the most people live. Even population. They don't live, or they live in Madison or in Western Carolina. That's where the majority. Mattapanai has a lot of people as far as Belmont's concerned. But you have Ladysmith Village, you have Pendleton, you have Lake Caroline. All of those developments are there. And the businesses that are coming, they need representation. And that's what I'm saying, is the fact that, you know, I would not want to see the Madison District go with a representation on the Board of Equalization, especially since there are so many houses and properties that have the chance of having issues with the Equalization Board. The Board of Assessors can go through and they can change. They can change the assessments. But the Equalization Board, they will equalize it based on the other houses in that particular area. And there's more of a chance of that happening than it is anywhere else.
All right, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I don't think we're going to solve this tonight. But in the cover memo, it says that the Commissioner of Revenues confirmed there's only a 5-member maximum. I mean, why would that be? Because, oh, the rule
The
book
state
says
code
that.
says that.
And
Why-
3 to
why
5
would-
members.
Why wouldn't it say something that, based on the districts you have?
Should have asked Delegate Oric. I don't know, sir.
But anyway,
That's a stupid rule. I mean, put bluntly, it is, because now we're having this discussion and I'm wasting heartbeats.
right.
You know, the reality is, it should be the number of districts. And since you're saying it's in the code,
We can't change it. It's in the code.
Okay, and
I
again,
don't always have to raise stupid rules.
Mr. Thomas made his appointment.
Mr. Chairman.
No, let me finish.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Mr. Underwood made his appointment. Mr. Akins, you haven't,
I
you
do.
have a motion?
I
and
do.
if
I have a
If you get a
motion.
second,
On the floor that says, I would like to recommend the name of David Rababi to the judge for appointment to the Board of Equalization.
is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we would recommend the name of Mr. David Rababi to the judge to serve as the Board of Equalization representative for the Madison District. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The motion carries. Mr. Seeley, would you like to make,
Mr. Chairman, I need to see who my board member was in the past and who the other board members in the past were also.
okay, and I don't have a nomination tonight either, but we do have 3, and when we come back on the December meeting, we can give those board members who did not make a nomination or did not choose a person an opportunity to do it at that time. And then once that's done, the board will then determine when the time comes, which of those 5 people will serve. I mean, that's the only way to do it, really.
Mr. Chairman, the reason I did not want to wait, or the appointee that I had 4 years ago now lives in Mr. Black's district. So the Madison District does not have a
Right.
current member.
Right. Okay. All right, that takes us to the consent agenda. Agenda items A through E. Is there a item on the consent agenda that any board member would like to pull?
I'd like to pull C, please.
Okay, the request for waiver of community services rental fee. Okay, if there are no other agenda items in question, we can, I can entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items A, B, D, and E.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Been moved and properly second that we would approve consent agenda items A, B, D, and E. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. All right, Mr. Thomas, you have a question about agenda item C.
The question is, agenda item C is the Virginia Department of Mines, Minerals, and Energy is asking for a reimbursement of $80 for rental of the community services center for a public hearing concerning a permit. So we're going to reimburse them for doing their job when the delegate just sat here and told us how money was hard to get back from Richmond? I am not going to vote to give the Virginia Department of Mines and Minerals $80, 80 cents, or 8 cents. They need to pay the fee like everybody else pays the fee.
Other board members?
I mean,
Making a motion?
I'll make a motion to not pay that and pull it off the fee, and if you want to put a zero on it, send them a bill, put the zero on it.
Didn't they pay the fee to,
Yeah, well, we're not gonna, we'll send them I will make a motion to send a letter not to reimburse them.
Second.
Moved and properly second that we would not reimburse the Virginia Department of Mines and Minerals for the fee for the use of the community center. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Okay. We're at the 7:30 time period, but we will take a 10-minute break and we'll come back at 7:40. We will reconvene the November 24th Caroline County Board of Supervisors meeting. That takes us to the public comment section on our agenda. This is the section of our meeting where citizens are allowed to approach the board on any item that is not a public hearing. If you would like to approach the board, you may at this time state your name and your district if it's applicable. So at this time, I will open the public comment section of the November 24th, 2015 Board of Supervisors meeting. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? Is there anyone who would like to address the board? Yes, sir. Okay. Okay. Okay, you may do that at the time. This is not public hearings, this is public comment. You will be allowed to do that when we get to that agenda item, okay? All right. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Scott Mosier from Bowling Green District.
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to update the board and members of staff that the fundraising program that was initiated by the Sheriff's Office and a couple citizens in the county, Cops for Kids, was very successful. We were able to raise the $5,000. So what we're going to do is meet at the community center at 7 o'clock in the morning on December the 5th. It's going to be 50 children, total of 17 families, and we're going to take them from here over to the Denny's, who have supported this program, and they're going to supply breakfast to everyone that's going, a combination of the families, the kids, as well as some citizen volunteers to help the kids shop, as well as several deputies, well, numerous deputies. So we're trying to get a deputy for every family, at least 17. So once we have breakfast at Denny's, we're going to go on down to the Walmart area in Ashland, and they're going to get a $100 gift card per child, and they're going to be able to shop for Christmas where they wouldn't normally have a Christmas. Social service was instrumental in putting the list together and recommending the families that would benefit from this program. After we leave the Walmart, a day of shopping, we told them an hour, but they'll probably take longer. We're going to come back to the community center, and Walmart's going to donate some wrapping paper, and we're going to have some people here, maybe some volunteers from the school or some church group, to wrap the gifts if the parents would like for the gifts to be wrapped. So it's going to be a great event, and we want to invite the board to come if they'd like, any member of the board, and to go shopping with us. And the school's going to provide school buses so that we'll all ride together from this community center to Denny's to Walmart and back. So it's kind of, everybody's pitched in for this program. We hope to continue this program from year after year. We raised well over $5,000, and we have some seed money for the following year. So it's been very successful, and I know several of you members of the board have helped us with the program. We recently had an event at Lake Landor that was, we went, but it was their event. It was the Pit Masters, and they chose Cops for Kids to be the benefit of that fundraiser, and they donated $830 to the program. So it was very nice. But we just thank you all for your cooperation in that matter and updating the board.
Thank you, Major. We appreciate all the work that you guys do, and certainly those kids will have a better Christmas because of your efforts. So thank you.
You're welcome. And the money is designed that they will spend a portion of the money on themselves, and part of the money will go to a family member or one of their siblings, so they'll learn about receiving Christmas presents as well as sharing with others and giving as well.
Thank you. If I come, you can buy me something?
If you come, I will buy you something. Thank you.
Thank you, Major.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
before you close the public comment period, if you will allow Mrs. Hayes, Dr. Hayes, rather, to speak during the discussion on the emergency ordinance that we talked about at the last meeting.
I will do that.
Okay, fine.
I will do that. Okay, is there anyone who would like to address the board on any issue that's not a public hearing or on the agenda for discussion? Is there anyone who would like to approach the board on any issue that's not a public hearing or not on the agenda for discussion? Finally, is there anyone else who would like to approach the board? Seeing no one with the intention to speak, I will close the public comment section of the meeting. All right, that takes us to public hearings. Text Amendment 06-2015, an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance of Caroline County by amending Article 8, off-street parking and loading requirements, Section 1.14. The purpose of this amendment is to decrease the number of parking spaces required for a shopping center from 1 per 200 of rental floor area to 1 per 250 of rental floor area. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you previously reviewed this text amendment when it was forwarded to you from the Planning Commission, and your first reading was held at that time. The proposed amendment would amend the parking standards related to retail sales establishments in a shopping center to reduce the parking requirements from one space per 250 square feet to one space per 200 square feet. This is typical of what we've seen in other localities' regulations when you have large retail centers such as we are being proposed here. As I stated earlier, our current parking regulations were written 30-plus years ago, and the parking requirements really were based upon the shopping period between Thanksgiving and Christmas, when your parking lots tend to be full and are 60 to 70% utilized the rest of the year. The applicant has noted that this modification would be needed to support the proposed Ladysmith Crossing Shopping Center, and the Planning Commission did forward this to the board with a recommendation of approval on a 4-to-1 vote. With that, I'll answer any questions that the board may have.
Does the board have questions prior to the opening of the public hearing? If not, we will open the public hearing for text amendment 06-2015. Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this text amendment? Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this text amendment? Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this text amendment? Seeing no one with the intention to speak, I will close the public hearing and ask the board, how would you like to address this issue? Okay, Mr.